video show. This is my safe place. My safe, what is it? Safe spot? Safe...
There you go. Try and use that liberal jargon. We are live.
Ooh. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Love and Marriage Podcast. I am your host, Wendy-O. This is my co-host, Hotep Jesus, and we actually have a very, very special guest. We have Chef Gruel. How are you doing tonight, Chef?
Hey, how you doing?
We're good. So normally we talk about love and marriage on this particular show, but tonight we're going to have Chef come on because he has been you've been all over the place, speaking out amongst a lot of different things, and Hotep Jesus would call this communism that Chef's speaking out about.
Them damn commies.
So, I was actually telling you before we went live is that I actually wanted to have you and your wife come on and talk about love and marriage and talk about how you guys run your businesses together. You guys are married. You guys have 4 amazing children. Like, kind of just talk about how that dynamic works, because at least with me and my husband, we can do the marriage thing, we can do the raising kids thing, but when it comes to running a business together, I do not touch his stuff. He does not touch my stuff. We do not work well together. So I was like, wow, they're business partners. But then I saw that your wife had, that you guys were expecting and that she had given birth. And I was like, no, I can't ask them to come on, because you brand new babies. But then all this crazy stuff has been happening. And we wanted to just kind of get you to come on and have you tell us what the hell is going on.
It's a good question. And I can always grab Lauren too. I'm sure she's running around right now with the kids behind me. So, if you want the crazy stuff.
That would be great. Bring the kids too. I'll bring my daughter in, bring the husband. Hotep will bring his people in.
Yep. Perfect. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So you tell me how you want me to rant and I'll rant away.
Yeah. All right. So to me, it seems like, at least from where I'm sitting, I'm in New Jersey. It seems like it's Chef Gruel versus Gavin Newsom. Have y'all ever spoken, or have you ever had communication with the governor?
Never had any communication. I will tell you this, though, that, and I won't reveal too much detail, but since I kind of went on my original rant and, it started to go viral and this on Gavin Newsom, we have had a few government agencies just coincidentally start doing some fishing expeditions on things. So it's a little weird. It's a little weird.
When you say fishing, what do you mean by that?
I mean just broad-based audits on businesses, myself personally, etc.
Wow. So you've raised sort of a red flag with the alphabet boys, and
you got it.
And so you're in the streets, we'd call that you're hot right now, right? And hot, not in a good way. Like you got a little bit of heat. You got the heat on you.
Oh yeah. The target's definitely sizzling.
Have the officials come to your? Because I've seen some clips where people come in and they're trying to find people and whatnot. Have they done that at your restaurants?
No, so we haven't had anybody come in. We haven't had anybody actually address the fact that we're, quote, defying the orders of our overlords. So for us, it's been smooth sailing in that regard. Now, granted, we're in Orange County, which is a little bit different than LA. LA, I mean, I've seen some of these videos. It's pretty intense what they're doing. I mean, it's like the Gestapo coming out and dropping the hammer on these businesses that are just, maybe skirting around some of these regulations to try and keep people employed.
Now, where do you align politically before we get to the next few questions?
Well, as I've mentioned, when I run for governor, I'll be running as a libertarian. So if that answers the question, then
Okay, good. That kind of just twisted my mind. I have to because I didn't expect that, right?
What did you expect, Hotep?
Republican.
Oh, come on.
Republican was damn, my bad.
Come on, he's a low-key crypto person too. We are libertarians, sir.
I love it. I wish I would have known. I'm in my own bubble. I haven't, I don't get a chance to keep up. Got a million things coming on, baby coming tomorrow. But that's great. So are you okay with anarchy?
Am I okay with anarchy?
Extreme for you? Yeah, is that too
I
extreme
mean,
for
I
you?
wouldn't say I wouldn't say I'm like a hard right libertarian in the sense of it being complete and utter anarchy. But I think I think certain controls need to be put in place. Although I think we've gone so far around the circle here in California that the libertarians will just let it lay bare that the government overreach has just gone overboard.
Why? Why? I'm going to play devil's advocate here. COVID
Yep.
19 has killed 300,000 people nationally, so on and so forth. And, we need to lock down. Why do you feel like you can defy this order? Why do you think you can do that when you're potentially putting people's lives at risk?
Yeah, and look, I agree. If the lockdown was the real mechanism by which we were going to stop this spread, then let's do it, right? Let's go all in. If we're going to lock it down, lock it all down. Lock down all the government offices, lock down the governor's office, lock down the airplanes, lock down the airports, lock down the big box stores, and then take all the money that's sitting in these bloated government programs and redistribute that money directly to the people. Don't take the money and then redistribute it through another government agency, which just happens to get lost or redistributed to their campaign donors. Pay everybody to stay home. Then we'll have 2 weeks whereby we can objectively monitor the data to determine if the lockdown was effective. And if the data proves that the lockdown was ineffective when it was actually being done properly, well, then we know that we can wipe that control measure off the board. So it's not that I'm defying any orders. It's that when you selectively choose which industries can and can't lock down, then it's nonsense. I mean, anybody can open their eyes and see that.
Do you think that the lockdowns are an effective measure?
I don't know whether they are or they aren't an effective measure because they've never been done properly, right? So what we know right now with what we're seeing, I don't necessarily know if the lockdowns are the answer. But once again, like I say, we're looking at it and we're looking at data that's skewed.
Data is skewed. So you're saying that the numbers that they purport are not accurate?
I'm saying that the numbers that we see, right? We see cases spiking in certain situations, and then we see deaths, and we see all these numbers, and we're blaming it on industries like the restaurant industry, like small businesses, retail, et cetera, when we don't really know where these cases are coming from, because one day I can be in Walmart with my mask off, the next day I can be in the restaurant, and I might say that I was at Walmart. So when we look at the data is tainted because we don't truly know and understand where people are, if they're allowed to go out or if they're not allowed to go out. So, the selective lockdowns are where we're kind of, that's what I mean by skewing the data.
Well, let me also kind of jump in here too. So I worked in healthcare 7 years. I worked in infectious disease with HIV/AIDS. So with that particular illness is, where you got it from. It's not airborne. So you kind of look at a list of your partners or who you're using drugs with and injecting with, and there's like a group where you could have gotten it. But when we're talking about COVID, it's very hard to tell where you got it because, like you said, you could be at the Walmart, you could be at the restaurant, you can go to the post office. I was at the post office last week, and there was like 40 people inside the post office just standing in line. You can even go to your grocery store or even go see your parents, and you're not going to know where you got it from.
Yeah, nobody really knows, and that's the whole point. And furthermore, what's like really crazy about all of this is just, once again, the hypocrisy. So, I can't go eat outside, but then I can set up a movie set right next door and I can do the exact same thing that I said that I shouldn't be doing in the first place. So that's what I mean about like tainted data, right? It makes it difficult. But then you look at states like Florida, right? They're completely open. And if you take all the states and you use a proper metric, right? Because cases, I think that's incredibly, that's a variable situation. And obviously there's some subjectivity to it as to who's getting tested and who's not. But if you look at deaths per 1 million population, right? And you take Florida's number 21 of 50 states. 1, 2, and 3 is New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island, last I checked, which was only like 12 hours ago. Florida's 21. Florida is completely open, wide open. There's no restrictions at all. So why is that, right? And why is New York number one? And they've had some of the most stringent lockdown measures.
Indeed. That's a good question. What's your policy with the mask at your restaurant?
So we wear masks because, we feel as if, look, at the end of the day, I don't think the mask debate is the hill to die on, because it's not as much of an inconvenience as I think certain other things might be. So if there's even empirical data which points to masks slowing the spread or being somewhat of a control measure, let's go ahead and wear the mask. Not an issue at all. And it's funny because we haven't had an issue with the mask. So we're in quote, anti-mask zone in Huntington Beach, California. You go to anybody and say Huntington Beach, California, and they think it's everybody burning their masks. But we've never had an issue with guests coming in and having an issue with wearing a mask. Plus, we've got plexiglass up, so you can order with or with. It's just not an issue. I think the media is making it an issue because they want to be able to rely on something, some token, some talking point.
Let's say I walk in and I'm not wearing a mask. You gonna make me put one on?
No, I'm not going to, because we're a fast casual restaurant, and I'm protecting my employees as well. And because it's not up to me 100%, right? Like I need to make the decisions based upon the level of comfort my team members have too. So I don't want to put them in an uncomfortable situation and force them to work in an environment where they might be uncomfortable. But we've got plexiglass up, which is protecting you from the guest. So if you come in temporarily without a mask on and then you go outside, we're never really interacting in an area in which hypothetically you could be spreading that bad breath. But personally, I'll tell you this. I haven't brushed my teeth in like 6 months. I've saved so much on toothpaste because I wear masks all the time.
Well, I mean, that also adds to the mask argument is have you guys seen the reusable shopping bags?
No.
At the grocery store? And because we have them in California, so this is a California thing. I remember when they mandated the law that you have to have the reusable bag and you couldn't have the plastic bag, which I was pissed off about because we reuse the plastic bags for, for the whatever, we reuse them. And people don't even wash their bag. Like they're putting like meat and produce, all kinds of stuff in the shopping bags, and they don't wash it. And I was telling Hotep this last week, and can you imagine these people that don't wash their reusable bags with the mask? They probably don't wash their masks either.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like a walk. It's a mobile petri dish.
Oh shit, we're supposed to wash our masks? Oh well. Oh man. Chef, you've been doing like some speaking, right, around the nation?
Yep.
People are booking you, or you showing up voluntarily, or you like a celebrity now? What's going on with that?
No. I'm just trying to speak out on behalf of certain organizations to kind of try and figure out the reasonable approach forward, if you will. Most of what I've been doing though has been remote and media stuff. Just really trying to be a voice of reason in all of this.
How are people taking to that?
Some people, I would say 99% of the response has been positive. And I think it's been positive because, we're not trying to glam onto any conspiracy theories here, and nor are we trying to be a barrier amidst any of these policies that they're putting in place. But when they tell us to follow the data for 10 months and we follow the data and we follow the science, and then the data and the science doesn't work towards the narrative, we're not just going to then switch and use our emotion. We're going to continue following the data. So for example, what put me in the spotlight was when I spoke out about this outdoor dining ban. That was a scenario where we were following the data and the data didn't support their position. They kept pivoting and then doubled down on the pivot and said, no, we've got the science to prove that outdoor dining is bad. And that was in LA County specifically. And what happened? The judge overturned it because they were bluffing. They had no science. They had no data. And now the narrative is completely switched, that they're saying, well, it's the mere optics of people eating outdoors that's going to lead other people to go and do things outdoors. And really the message is to get people locked down and keep them in their house. So the narrative switched entirely. So because of the way I'm responding to that, I'm getting a lot of, I've gotten a couple death threats, hate mail, etc. But overall, the support is positive.
I kind of feel like it is Hanukkah. We're celebrating Hanukkah at my house. My dad was Jewish, and he educated us on what happened and whatnot. Kind of
Mazel
feels
tov.
like Mazel tov, Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm kind of feeling these Germany vibes in California.
Yeah, it's feeling like that, right? It's feeling very like Nazi Germany now.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's also some context here that people do need, some of our viewers do need to understand is that Orange County and LA County, they're two separate counties, and Orange County is more of a red area. LA County is very, very, very blue. They are very liberal. They are two very different areas and different types of people. So I just kind of wanted to add that in as well. And yeah, and it's very hard for me to go from them going from, I remember last March, they said it's okay to go take walks and to be outside. And now they don't want us to be outside.
Yeah.
Chef, hypothetically speaking, one of these officials walks into your restaurant and he says, "You got to shut this down." What are you going to do, bro?
Well, I'm gonna try and take this onto a human level, right? Talk to them, express to them, and explain to them why we're open, and kind of get into really discuss the risk factor that's there, right? Because this all comes down to policy. Policy is about trade-offs, cost-benefit analysis, and when you look at the costs, the benefits, what they're asking us to do, laying off employees during the holidays when we're not putting anybody at any risk, and furthermore, the people that are coming into the restaurant, they're making decisions for themselves. They're using their own individual liberty in order to make that choice to enter that situation, which hypothetically could be riskier or not. And those people have the right to make those decisions themselves. So I'd have that conversation. After that, I would offer them as much as I could on the menu, specifically the lobster. That seems to be really good at getting people to listen to me. And if that doesn't work, then I guess we're just going to have to accept the fines.
Have you ever seen anything like this before in your life?
I mean, no, I don't think any of us have seen a situation like this whereby the government is forcing people to do things that they don't even do themselves, right? So, I mean, there's just such a stark difference here between the actions of those elected officials that are telling us what to do and what they're actually doing themselves. The hypocrisy has always been there, but I think that the gap between what's happening up above and the reality on the ground is just astronomical.
What do you think the play is behind of all this? With the lockdowns, do you think that the lockdowns are here because they care about COVID, or is there some ulterior motive at play here, in your opinion?
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say that our elected officials are intelligent enough to be able to collude on a level that they could, push forward some grand reset. Now, while there might be obviously motives up above, some sort of. Did you just mention
the Great Reset? I'm sorry, I thought you just said the Great Reset. My bad. Continue.
Yeah, look. There might be a grand thesis whereby people obviously want to implement some sort of a recalibration, if you will. But once again, I just don't give all of our elected officials enough credit to be able to pull this off from a level of intelligence. I don't think these are incredibly intelligent people to begin with. I think what they're trying to do, what are they driven by? They're driven by ego. Obviously they think about themselves, so they want to be able to move on to their next role, which is going to be bigger. They're going to make more money. So a lot of this for them is about acting tough, right? Like, look at what I did. I made the tough decisions, and I had to take out small businesses, but I'm doing it to help and save everybody. This is just self-flagellation. This is all about trying to make themselves look really tough so that then they can obviously, kind of kowtow to the big businesses or their corporate donors, obviously give them what they want, thus the selective nature of these lockdowns, and then move on from there. That's what I think is driving this, ego, emotion, etc.
Do you think elections had anything to do with this?
Of course. I mean, in an election year, everybody's acting differently than they would outside of it. All of us are, right? I mean, we all act differently on social media as individuals. Elected officials act differently. Heck, I know from a business perspective, we spend differently because we're trying to anticipate what the new administration is or isn't going to do, whoever that's going to be. But furthermore, every single elected official has recognized and, kind of galvanized the statement whereby a crisis is also an opportunity. They've said it. They've said it themselves. So, that's certainly apparent in a lot of their actions.
Donald Jerome Trump has been president for the past 4 years, and he's received a lot of vitriol and backlash. How do you think it was deserved, the treatment that Trump got for the past 4 years?
I think that the media is going to be really disappointed in the next 4 years because they've lost something to talk about, and I wonder what's going to happen with mainstream media. I think there's going to be a lot of jobs lost. Look, everybody, even Trump himself, has probably had some, has had some discomfort with some of the things that he himself might say, et cetera. But everybody speaks out and says stupid stuff. And sometimes it got to the point throughout the whole pandemic process where it was like, look, I'm sick of hearing about Trump. Like, let's focus on the issues at hand right now. Not everything has to come back to him. He's not the common denominator in all of this. And now you look and you see, and, for me, it's kind of humorous, right? And like, I'll call out the people I support. I'll call anybody out. I don't have allegiances. But what's hilarious is when you look back and see how much crap he got for talking about, Operation Warp Speed and how he was going to get a vaccine. Oh, he's going to need a miracle, et cetera. And now it happened. And it's like, just the counterpoint in what we're seeing in the headlines is hilarious.
That's a good point. He did say they were going to get a vaccine out. They said he wasn't going to be able to do it. And lo and behold, here it is. That's a great point. What grade would you give Donald Jerome Trump on his handling of the COVID pandemic, and why would you give them that grade?
You know what? I'll probably have to plead the fifth on that one because I looked at things from I don't even think that my intelligence can go so far as to determine what the COVID response should have been on a federal level. On a state level, though, I think it was a complete and utter disaster here in California. Complete mismanagement, gross misappropriation of funds in California. Scapegoating of small industry and small business in order to enrich big business. And it couldn't have been more obvious. Hypocrisy at every single level of government. So let me at least isolate it on a local level, because I really do look at things locally. And looking at this from the perspective of local politics, we in California, we get an F-.
The cohort. A lot of people have a cohort around them, friends, family, so on and so forth. Who does your cohort support? Are they libertarian? Are they liberal? Are they conservative? Where do they land in all of this?
I mean, I've got friends all over every single side of the aisle. My wife herself is aligned with myself. She's libertarian. She might even be a little bit more towards the libertarian hard right than I am. But the end of the day, I mean, I think that we all believe that we have inherent liberties and we have the ability to make decisions for ourselves. That's what it comes down to. It's hilarious to think that some of these people making the decisions for us think they're smarter than us. I mean, they think we're dumb. That's really what this comes down to, and that they know better. Yeah.
So you're a libertarian. You believe in smaller government. How small is small enough, or how big is too big? Where do you draw the line on the growth of the government? How can you tell because you can, now it's obvious the government's too big, right? But where was that breaking point in the growth of the government? Where do you identify that? Is it like 1945? Is it 1913? Where does it stop? Does it stop at a certain type of policy? Where does the growth of the government stop for you? That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if I could draw a line in a specific timeline, if you will, I would say the early 1900s, maybe even late 1800s. I think there was a level of corporatism that started to spiral out of control coming out of the Gilded Era, moving into the Industrial Revolution, et cetera. And then that corporatism is whereby we started to concentrate power in large conglomerates that were working in tandem with the government. And what we've seen now over the past century and going into the 21st century is we've actually seen an effective business merge between big business and big government. And we're living under a corporate system right now whereby the big government and the corporations have become one, quite literally. And obviously the nuance to that is the way in which social media has played and big tech has played a role in that. So now to answer your question after this ramble is that it's all about It's all about the safety of our own liberties. So I think government should step in when it starts to harm people, right? We need to protect each other. And outside of protecting each other, the government really shouldn't have much of a role. But when social media, big tech, et cetera, has been spliced into the big arm of the government, their actions, right, across this new social landscape, which has reconditioned us to live in a virtual world, their actions are harmful to a lot of us. So they are actually abating our personal liberties to the degree that I think it's not just harmful intellectually, but we've even seen the bullying, the abuse across a lot of these platforms. Now, bullying and abuse, I'm also referring to political abuse. I'm referring to the censoring of political viewpoints. And I don't want to be specific about either side, but I think that's where the government actually should step in, ironically. So
the bullying, step in for what type of bullying? I'm a little lost on that.
I'm talking about Section 230.
Okay.
I'm talking about censorship across social media, censorship across the internet.
You think the government should step in on that stuff?
I think that there should be liability for these big tech companies when it comes to censorship.
Oh, really? Why?
Well,
because isn't that gonna? Here's how I feel. I feel like that's a slippery slope because you're basically telling people what they can do with their corporation, what they can and cannot do with their corporation. So they can.
They're already doing it though, but they're already doing that though, because for example, President Trump is tweeting and they're marking it as election fraud, or they're marking it as this.
I have no problem with that though. I personally have no problem with that.
But that's the president of the United States, and they're saying what he's saying is incorrect, and it's not the government saying that; it's some company.
Then go to Parler or go to Gab or go somewhere else.
But
why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they do that with the other side though? Why wouldn't they do it fair? Why wouldn't they do that with both Trump and Biden?
You're on enemy grounds. The left run that platform.
Crazy, man. Communism.
Well, the commies run that.
So I agree with you. I agree with you in principle. But once again, the libertarian principles do come back to the idea that the one thing government should be doing is protecting our personal liberties as well as, keeping us safe. So when we start to see state-run media, which is what's effectively happening across the social media sphere and tech and news, et cetera, that's where it starts to kind of blur this line, right? So I do agree with you that we should say, okay, well, look, there's alternatives. If we live in a free market, there's alternatives. There's Parler, or we can set up any of these other apps. But if that's the case, then the government also shouldn't be creating loopholes for these big tech companies. I mean, look at the amount of money that we're giving to some of these companies.
Yeah.
So it's an uneven playing field. So on the one hand, we say free market, but then on the other hand, we're creating an uneven playing field. I mean, that's not capitalism. That's crony capitalism.
I would call it exploitation of socialist systems.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. So I guess what you're saying is, if you're going to be playing with the government, then the government has every right to put the shackles down on you and say this is wrong. Okay, that makes sense. That actually makes sense. All right, let's come back to the other point you made. You said the government should protect us, right? Well, that's what they're trying to do with the lockdown. They're trying to, quote unquote, protect us. So where is that line you draw on protection? How do you find that?
I should be clear. The government's trying to protect it. They should be there to protect us from each other. So that's where I talk about military, police, et cetera. So if I've got somebody who's trying to, take down my community violently, then that's what I mean in regards to protection.
Okay.
When it comes to personal protection, I think that we're responsible for our own personal protection.
Interesting.
When you're talking about personal protection, for example, with COVID, are you talking about each person should be able to dictate their own type of personal hygiene, or dictate if they want to wear a mask or not?
Yeah, but yes and no. I mean, I do think that if there is scientific evidence which proves that not wearing a mask in certain situations could theoretically spread the virus, and it could spread to the point where people die because of it, wear the freaking mask, right? But on the flip side, if the government is telling us that we can't do certain things where the risk level might be a little bit higher, like I can stay home. So that's the point of all of this, is that we can tranche out the sectors of society that are at higher risk here, right? Elderly, obviously, people with comorbidities, obesity. There's certain things we've now learned with this virus. So there are certain people that are much higher risk factor. Those of us who have actually tested positive for the antibodies, I haven't, but those people should be able to assess risk on a different level. So they should be able to go out to eat. And look, if I'm an obese 90-year-old man and I've decided, you know what, my life, I'm going to go anyway. I'm going to go out to eat. That's up to me to make that decision. So that's what I mean in regards to making decisions on our own, in regards to our own health.
I got a question here from Fudge Mayo, $5 super chat. Wanted to ask you, Chef, how do you feel about people taking the vax and still having to wear the face mask, aka the face diaper?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, look, at that point, I don't want to call it propaganda because that has a negative tone to it. But the reason that they really want people to continue wearing the face mask after they've gotten the vaccine is because that they don't want the optics of people not wearing a mask to become normalized.
The optics. I hate when people say that shit. Okay, that makes sense. Are you taking it? Are you going to take
vaccine?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to take it. And I'm not taking it not because I don't want to suddenly turn this into an anti-vaxxer thing, but I don't think that I'm in the risk category whereby I should be taking it.
You don't think you should take it because you're not at risk. Why are you not at risk?
Well, I'm younger. I'm in shape. I am willing to leave that vaccine for somebody who's at a higher risk category.
Interesting. You're a clever guy there, Chef. If I was in California, I'd vote for you.
Thank you.
You got the Hotep Jesus vote, man. Very, 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 very interesting argument you're making here.
Are you guys taking the vaccine?
Wendy, you want to answer that?
I'm not taking it.
I thought you said you was going to take it, Wendy. You said you wanted the double dose.
No, I told you on the show last week, I said I'm not taking it. And the reason why I'm not taking it is because, number one, I worked in healthcare for a long time and I never got the flu vaccine and I was fine. And I worked around high-risk people that gave me all kinds of sorts of weird things. We're in my personal business, in my face. I'm not taking it. I don't believe that I need to put something into my body that I don't need. I am young. I'm not young, but I'm healthy. I don't have any pre-existing conditions. I'm not in the age group that needs it. And I'm definitely not giving it to my child because it hasn't been tested long enough. And there could be side effects. And I do believe that would be child abuse if I did give it to my child. So I don't feel comfortable taking it or giving it to my child.
Can we change gears real fast?
Yes.
Black Lives Matter has been in the news quite frequently. How do you assess the Black Lives Matter movement, organization, et cetera, et cetera? Be careful how you answer this.
Why are we switching gears to this?
Because I want to get a holistic view of Chef and how he thinks.
I think that corporate America has certainly hijacked a lot of the good pieces of Black Lives Matter, and they've woke washed it. I'm disappointed with that piece of it because a lot of these big corporations that are really taking that narrative on, they're hypocrites. They're not, it's just a marketing campaign for them. So I assimilate a lot of what's going on to like sustainability, right? And I don't want to degrade the movement by equivocating it, but what we saw with sustainability 10, 15 years ago was that there was a true movement behind it. And then you started to see corporate America, kind of wash it out. And everything was sustainable. So when McDonald's is pushing like a sustainable fish fillet, it's like, come on, are we joking here? So look, I think I absolutely love, organically, true movements. I have also not spent enough time to assess the numbers, the finances behind the actual organization. So, the mission statement aside, the actual organization, I haven't looked at any of that. And I bring that up because a lot of movements, you see that they start, as I mentioned about the corporatism element of it is that then you start to see that it becomes a financial thing. So you look at the financials, look at the Lincoln Project, right? I mean, those guys grifted for millions and millions of dollars, and I don't really even understand what they were doing. But that's my general perspective on, I think, some of what we've seen in regards to that.
So they brought up, police brutality, for example, is one of the things that they brought up. How would you, if you were governor, what would you do to sort of alleviate some of the stress that Black people have when it comes to economic inequality, whatever the hell that means, and police brutality?
Yeah, I mean, police brutality is a big issue. I've seen it personally. I mean, I've seen it here in California. I think, economic opportunity for education, right? That's a huge one. And that's something that isn't really, we don't hammer that home enough. When we talk about education, I'm not talking about higher education, right? I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about getting into an Ivy League school. I'm talking about just true opportunity and access to vocational education. And what I've seen is that that's selective in different communities. And when we cut off communities from the opportunity to enrich themselves by virtue of, just general everyday education, that's where we start to stratify, I think, some of these different neighborhoods and different communities, and then it becomes, it kind of perpetuates itself. So education is an area in which I would focus right off the bat. And then in terms of police brutality, look, even a lot of our, those in blue agree that there needs to be reforms and there needs to be, new training, et cetera. But I think transparency is also key there. I think transparency. Look, the great thing about these iPhones is that everybody's accountable now. And we've seen so many situations now where some of these corrupt police officers have done crazy things, but now we can see it. So transparency.
Yeah.
Can I kind of chime in about the education in California?
No.
Well, I'm going to. Thank you. So, kind of piggyback off of what Chef said, in California, if depending on what neighborhood you live in, that's the kind of access you're going to get to education. Even though they're claiming in all these poor neighborhoods that they're doing X, Y, and Z to help the communities, they're really not, because we just moved from a very poor neighborhood that the schools are like a 3 out of 10, and we moved to a nicer neighborhood where the schools are like 9 out of 10, and a lot of the kids that live in my old neighborhood, they don't even go to those schools. They don't go to the schools in my old neighborhood. My neighbor, they actually go to a very rich white neighborhood. They have the school district they have their kid put in because the education system is so bad. So when they're talking about what Jeff is talking about, equal education, that needs to be revamped in California, because if you live in a poor city, you're going to get a crappy education unless your parents can afford to put you into private school, or they can somehow get you to go into a different school district.
Yeah, education's a tough one for me, and I don't want to move this conversation too far away. But education's, for example, let me just tell you what I'm thinking. When you talk about giving Black folks an education, really what you're talking about doing is colonizing their minds. And making them culturally something that they're not.
I said vocational.
I was just about to say that. I liked what Chef said, vocational. And that goes back to Booker T. Washington, man, giving people those real skills, man. That is so important. And that's why I liked when you said that vocational line. That's super important. Booker T. Washington was talking about, having people go into engineering, mechanics, and all of that stuff before you go to the 4-year schools, because what's really gonna sustain you is having something that, like, I tell my kids, I'm like, you can do whatever you want in this world, but it's like, what can you do? Like, you can learn whatever you want, but what can you do? Like, that's what's going to equate to your value. Chef, he can cook. That's a skill, right? And that's what this stuff comes back to.
I want to chime in about the vocational education, and the reason being is because I did that. To work in healthcare, I had to get my vocational. I went to vocational school and I got my license. Those vocational schools, they prey on people in poor neighborhoods. They prey on minorities in poor neighborhoods, and they work with
Also
the
true.
governments to get these kids FAFSA. And I paid for my certificate. I paid $1,000 for it. When if I would have gone to, and I had to drive a little bit far to get to it, and it was at an adult school. But if I wanted to go to to ITT Tech or whatever and get that same education, it would have been 10 grand. And what they're doing is they're pushing loans out to these kids and saying, oh, you get out of school and you make $20 an hour, which that's not the case, especially if you're in healthcare. So they have these in these poor neighborhoods and they're pushing these out and they're working with the government, and it's all done through FAFSA, and it's a big effing scam.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we come back to the lockdowns real fast?
Yeah, please.
Chef, what is the thing that pisses you off the most about the lockdowns? Is it the fact that small businesses being affected?
I think that the lockdowns in many cases are going to create riskier situations. That's what pisses me off the most. But actually, let me even double down on that and get more granular. What pisses me off even more is the fact that everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people are just blindly accepting it without even questioning the reality of the situation. And here's an example, okay? So if I don't go out to eat at a restaurant and go sit on the patio outdoors, which we know there's no risk, I'm still going to have that Wednesday dinner party or that date night or whatever you have with my neighbors or friends, etc. But now I'm going to do it in my house. And I'm going to do it indoors. That's a riskier situation. So this is what I always talk about with the unintended consequences of government, is that they're not recognizing the unintended consequences of their decisions, which are worse than the original decision or the original, lockdown. So that's what pisses me off, is we're not even looking at it through a rational lens. Many of us are, but the others are just like, if you don't follow what the government says, then you're the problem.
Let's talk about that individual, that mind, right? Because that's the next question I have. That mind that's like, oh my God, Chef, how dare you not lock down? And, they've essentially turned the people against each other, right? So how do you get through to that mind? What do you say to that person when they say that to you? Like, Chef, you shouldn't be, I'm not talking about the government, just everyday average person, citizen. What do you say to them? How do you have that conversation with these people?
Yeah, and I make the mistake of trying to have those conversations over and over again on social media. And it's like, that's my Achilles heel, because I'll keep doing it. And I don't know why. My wife slaps me. She's like, stop, put the phone down. Like, you're never going to get through to them. But, trying to use data, right? I mean, numbers don't lie. And data that's not skewed, that's the interesting thing here. There's a lot. Let me just take a quick detour. We talk about airplanes, and everyone's like, well, the HEPA filters. Like, everybody's a freaking expert on HEPA filters suddenly. And now this research study is being traipsed around about the Department of Defense creating a scenario where they have mannequins. Now they've determined that airplanes are safe. Well, first of all, let's look who's funding that study. Tomorrow, I will find a scientist to create a study that says that dining in restaurants is safe. A lot of these studies are funded by the very industries that benefit from the result of the study itself. So when people don't recognize that, I can try and open their eyes to it, but I just don't think, I don't remember who said it. It might have been like Twain or somebody, but I remember reading that they said, even when you're right, you're wrong, right? How many times have you both have open minds? I've seen your content, but a lot of times when somebody realizes that they're wrong, they're pissed. They're pissed at the person that told them they were wrong. So it's like, okay, I know I'm wrong, but now I'm pissed that you shattered my reality. So even when you're right, you're wrong. And maybe sometimes it's not even worth trying to shatter people's reality.
Yeah.
But I do it anyway.
Social media, I don't do it. It's just a complete waste of time. But in person, I'm thinking about like what that conversation is like with that person who, like, for example, I saw black people online like, yeah, we need another round of lockdowns. And I'm like, yo, 50% of black business has been destroyed because of the lockdowns. Y'all claim we so poor, but here y'all are advocating. And it's just like, then you talk about the system of white supremacy. And I'm like, you agree with the system of white supremacy and the decisions they make? Like whose side are you on here? Like Like, you trust the government now? The same government that been against you for the past 400 years? Like, it's really weird that people have taken this side. But I feel like, where is that coming from? Where is that idea that lockdowns are the right thing to do? Where is the public getting that from?
Tribal politics. It's tribalism. You know, we all need to root for a team. It's groupthink, right? Diffusion of responsibility through a group. And right now, in the absence of everyday life, right, in the absence of sports, in the absence of hobbies, in the absence of all of the things that used to keep us distracted, people have turned politics into sport. And now they've dug into their side. And they aren't willing to think outside of whatever platform is being jammed down their throat from whichever side of the aisle they're looking at. And if a lockdown is the way to go and they say that's what you got to do, then you have to listen to your leaders and you need to regurgitate that. That is the equivalent, that's equivalent to wearing your Tom Brady jersey or, throwing on a, your Lakers jersey, right? That's what it is. You pro or are you anti-lockdown? Are you pro or are you anti-mask? There's no in between, oddly.
So you're saying that because they align with a certain political ideology, they have to go along with the lockdowns? Because correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like the main people that want the lockdowns are majority Democratic, leftist, progressive, right? Or no?
No, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I mean, I think there's even, yeah, I can't even come up with an alternate.
Yeah, because, from my timeline, I know we can be stuck in bubbles on social media, but from where I'm sitting, it seems like the Trumpers, MAGA, conservatives are like, screw these lockdowns. And it seems like everybody else is, if you hate Trump, you're for the lockdowns, which is really just hard to understand. And I think the only explanation, like you said, is that tribalism. But it's like, damn, like this conversation around health has nothing to do with politics. Yet people are following the political line. Wow, this is...
Well, health does have to do with politics, because a lot of these government bodies and these healthcare companies, they all work together. They are all the same unit. Yeah. It's no longer, even before Obamacare, but once Obamacare really went into effect, it became an absolute nightmare. And you were really able to see who was backing what, and just everything being merged together and essentially being one body.
That's the corporatism that I was referring to.
And that's why in the United States, our health protocols or our healthcare is different than it is in Europe. Because I would have clients that would go get HIV treatment elsewhere. They would come back to the United States and they would stick on the regimen that they got in Europe as opposed to the US, because the US doctors had to go by the FDA guidelines here, which the FDA guidelines didn't care about how it was impacting each individual patient. Mm-hmm. And they didn't care about the toxicity levels. They just kept pumping people full of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's also because we're all numbers, right? So we're all data on a spreadsheet. That's what people look at the data. They don't look behind the data to understand that there's, and use the cliche, right? There's families behind the data, mothers, fathers, cousins, kids, everything behind the data. It's all about numbers.
The more numbers they get, the more funding they get. My old company, they were so excited, and they really pushed sales on us. Really, really pushed sales, especially at the level I was at, which had nothing to do with sales. My job was patient care coordination. But the more sales they got and the more people that we inducted into the pharmacy, it was like, high five, this is great, this is good. And it's like, don't you care about these people's health? And the reason why they cared so much is because they got government funding, because they were a nonprofit. And they were getting the HIV medication at a discounted price because of their the licensing that they had, because of them being a nonprofit. So the more HIV medication they pushed out, or PEP or PrEP, they were able to get more money from the government, because the government would reimburse.
There you go. I mean, that's a financial quid pro quo. Bingo.
Whoa! I just saw something really, really weird here. Okay. All right. No. All right. No. I thought I was seeing something. Stimulus checks now is trending right now, right? It was trending really high earlier. Um, I'm trying to see. I'm trying to like test this theory, right? Like live as we're talking. Let me change my settings. People you follow. I want to see what the people are. So stimulus checks now is the trending hashtag, and the only person I follow that has tweeted that is Tulsi Gabbard. How do you feel about this stimulus checks? I think the conversation today is the fact that it's only $600. Are you for the stimulus checks? Is 600? Yeah. Is $600 not enough? Should there not be stimulus checks? What do you feel about this?
Oh yeah. Look, first, let me say this: any money that we get that's being distributed needs to go directly to us, right? I don't want it to go filter through some government agency, number one. Number two, if the government is shutting us down and forcing us away and not allowing us to create our own livelihood, then they should compensate us for us. But at what expense, right? At what cost? Where's that money coming from? Don't print that money, number one. So no, I don't agree with that. We've got to find the money from someplace else. And that's where I go on my rants. And I said, look, number one, I'm not saying that we all need to be for taxation, but if you look back over the past 5 years, small businesses paid an average of 22 to 23% in income tax. That's according to the SBA. Amazon between 2016 and 2019 paid less than 1% in taxes. Let's flip that script and that narrative, right? And all that tax money could go to give every citizen $15,000.
You know what's funny about what you said? The only person I follow is Tulsi Gabbard that tweeted that hashtag. And it's like, I guess the right was like, oh, the left started this hashtag, so we can't participate. But I'm sure people on the right agree that there needs to be stimulus checks, right? Do you think there should be stimulus checks, right? Directly to the people.
100% there should be stimulus checks. And like I said, checks directly to citizens. I mean, it's that simple. But you are right. That's a great point. And they won't, I'm telling you right now, if they don't give checks directly to the people, we're in trouble. Oh, we lost someone.
Yeah, Wendy just dipped out. She'll be back, I'm sure. She probably got a restart. Damn. So in my head, to me, I'm just like, the right talks all this tough guy talk, man. But everyone still sticks to their tribe, and not too many people to branch off and break the rules and say, yeah, I actually agree with this one hashtag stimulus checks now. But because the left started it, they can't participate in it. And that's just like, this is why we can't get nowhere.
Let me use the example. I mean, it's funny. Here I am championing, whatever. I'm a champion for small business. I don't know what happened there. Long day. Too many brownies. I'm a champion for small business, and I'm going after Amazon. Who do I sound like? AOC, right?
Yeah.
A year ago, that was her exact narrative. Now here I am saying the same thing, and I'm attracting the ire and the disdain of all the AOC supporters.
Wow, really?
Yeah, you go through my timeline when I post this, and it's like, you'd think that I was a communist for suggesting that. And all I'm doing right now is I'm just highlighting the hypocrisy of what's going on.
What did you say about Amazon?
Yeah.
What did you say about Amazon?
Oh, just that Amazon, they don't pay any taxes. And I'm not saying it's got to be a level playing field. Why do I pay 25% income tax and Amazon pays zero?
AOC's
There's
got
a strategic.
AOC's got tax to rich shirts, so why are the left attacking you for that?
Exactly. Because those are the people that are contributing to the campaigns of Democratic politicians.
Those are the people that
yeah,
the Amazon people, yeah.
Yep. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. You can never say anything bad about him.
Wendy, turn your camera sideways. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. WAPO. Yeah. Oh, let me get Wendy back in here. Did your computer die, Wendy? Did your computer die?
Oh, wait, there it goes.
It just came back. All right, let's try and get you back in here. That's really crazy, Chef.
I think it is too.
Because that's the exact argument that AOC had last year, and the right gave her health, and then the right gave her health for that. Which he was talking that because it was about the jobs, right? I think because there were potential jobs that could have come to New York, and because of her rhetoric, Amazon pulled out, I think was the big thing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. Damn, yo. I'm one of those people, I break the whole tribal thing. Like, I'll be like Trump, and then if I see something that come from the left, I don't even think like if it's left or not. I'm just like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's run with it. And I take hell for it, but I still stand 10 toes down. And I think that's why people respect me, man, because I'm going to call it straight down the middle how I see it.
Yeah, but that's you don't see that. That's a breath of fresh air now. And I think people do respect that.
Yeah.
Like, just across the board.
Yeah, we got to start doing that, man. People got to stop. I mean, I follow like 1,000 people, and not one of them was in that, except for Tulsi. This is crazy.
Could you imagine a political world where you don't put an R or a D or an I next to your name? Could you imagine if they didn't know, if they didn't associate with a political party and it was just issue by issue? Right. Imagine how much quicker things would get done.
So much faster. So much. Do you think that some of this, for example, I think one of the narratives is that Nancy Pelosi or the Democrats were holding up the stimulus because of the election. Do you agree with that? Is that what happened?
Yep. 100%.
Can you explain that to somebody who doesn't follow?
Yeah, because they know about Trump's hubris, and that if there was a stimulus that would pass, then he would take 1 million victory laps, and they didn't even want to risk that. I mean, that's strategy. And look, Pelosi doesn't care. In her mind, she's not for the people. That's a joke. For her, it's about political ambition. Her world is just completely immersed in her own and her party's political ambitions. So if we got to wait 4 extra weeks, what's another 4 weeks? I guarantee you that's what she was saying in her head as she was eating bonbons.
So they'd rather put the people at risk just for her own political benefit.
Yeah, collateral damage.
And the left won't even see that, man. Like straight up Democrats won't even see that.
Well, because they thought in their mind, and some of them, I won't speak for all of them, they saw that the lockdowns were enough, that they were keeping people safe with these lockdowns. And they don't seem to understand that there's people that are not making a whole lot of money or getting laid off from their jobs. They don't understand how long it takes when you go on unemployment. You just don't get a check, or you don't get money deposited. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. If you go on disability for, let's say after you have a baby, you don't get your check right away. It takes a while. You have to do all the paperwork, submit all the stuff. It takes time. And they don't seem to care that people in the United States, and yes, this is each individual's personal problem, but half of the people in the United States do not have $500 in a savings account. I think it's like 50%. And the big government people like Nancy Pelosi, they don't seem to care. They just think we're going to wait it out and it's going to be okay because we're protecting people with the lockdown. But in actuality, people just want to be able to pay their damn bills, and they can't do that.
Fudge mayo.
And
go ahead, Chef.
Well, I was going to say, to that point, right? So we recognize that. So, and there are so many people specifically in my industry that are out of work. I'm getting hundreds of emails, messages about real stories, right? Heartbreaking real life stories. And this isn't hyperbole. So that's why we started our own fund whereby we're actually going to be distributing funds to struggling or out-of-work restaurant workers. If the government's not going to help it out, then we're going to do it. I had so many people reach out to me after my video went viral, and they were saying, we want to donate money to your business. We want to give you money to your business. And we're not in this for ourselves. I'll make money in my own business by doing the right things. We're not going to grift off of this. But I realized, you know what? Maybe we could take this positive energy and funnel it into a real life fund. So heck, we've raised almost $32,000 already. We're going to be distributing it in denominations of about $500 to struggling and out of work restaurant workers. We didn't even need the government to do that.
I have a super chat here from Fudge Mayo. Fudge Mayo says, Wendy, and Chef, you can answer this too. How do you feel about Tulsi's new proposition? And I'm going to go ahead and just read the tweet out here 4 hours ago from Tulsi. He said, in March, I introduced House Resolution 897 calling for emergency direct payments to every American for the duration of this pandemic. Instead, there is one-time payment and completely dysfunctional unemployment program that has left many people without help. People need stimulus checks now. How do y'all feel about that? Obviously, we agree, right?
Yeah, I think that what they should have done, and I'm talking about everybody in general, like Chef said earlier, figure out a plan, lock it down, give people enough money to where they can still survive, pay their bills, and then reopen things and then get things, figure it out. But you can't just lock things down and not pay people and expect them to be okay. In some of the poor neighborhoods, people are starting to steal, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. There's all these mental health issues. A lot of people, I know at the domestic violence shelter, the cases are skyrocketing. My mom does, she's part of the Al-Anon program. The AA cases are skyrocketing too. There's a lot of abuse going on in homes. People need the money and they need it now. And it's not even now, they needed it March when everything was locked down, when this thing first started.
Chef, I think you alluded this to before, but monies went out to like large corporations, benefited. Yep. I think there was who was it today? I'm not gonna remember. I'm gonna stop trying, but I forget it. But yeah, a lot of corporations. I think Amazon got some of that money, didn't they? Didn't they get a kickback?
Probably. I mean, it's specific in my world. We found out today that the French Laundry, that infamous restaurant that Gavin Newsom was dining at and breaking his own orders, they received $2.7 million in funding. And
that's the one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
$2.7 million. That's one restaurant. That's one restaurant. $2.7 million, and that's 17 times the average amount that any other restaurant got.
And what's the connection to Gavin there?
He's their favorite customer. He orders everything sauce on the side.
How did they get 2.7 million?
I mean, how did half of these people get the money that they got? It's crazy. Corporatism.
Yeah, there was a lot of
the government should never be responsible for choosing how the money is spent, and it shouldn't go from one government agency to another government agency to another government agency.
Yeah.
Imagine if you wake up every morning, you have yourself a glass of milk. Would you take one big glass, pour it in a smaller glass, pour it in 9 other glasses? By the time you got to that last glass, you'd have no more milk. Be stuck on the side of all those other glasses.
Right. Damn. That's wild, man. This is wild. You know what perplexes me is just the fact that the tribalism is so strong that blatant mismanagement from the Democrat side of things isn't able to be explained, but everything is Trump's fault.
Yeah. I say do an exercise, right? Anybody who wants to open their mind, do an exercise. Every single story that you read and you start to feel as if you have these inherent visceral opinions about it, replace everybody in the story with somebody on the opposite side of the aisle. If you still have the same feelings, think about it, right?
I like that experiment. That's a good thought experiment.
Well, they do the interviews where they talk about a different political policy. They go to college campuses, they interview different students, and they pitch these policies. And Democrats are for the Republican policies and vice versa. And then they let them know what policy it was. And they're like, oh, well, I'm not. F that guy.
Yep. Exactly.
Paul Banks said, and feel free to chime in on this. It's a very interesting comment. He said, you can't have small business under socialism. This is a controlled demolition to keep people dependent on the government. Whew. How do you feel about that, Chef?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think it's like I've said before, I don't think that it's as coordinated as we think it is, because I don't give them enough credit for being that intelligent, but I think philosophically, yes, that is the vantage point of many people. But it doesn't necessarily always come from that drive to create a big state government. It comes from narcissism. You see, our elected officials think and believe they're smarter. That's the thing. They believe truly that their way is the only way, and they need to be in office, and they need to have centralized power because they're right.
I want to walk through that train of thought. You know, when you say you don't think it's coordinated because you don't give the government that amount of credit, right? Half of that I agree with. No, I don't give the government people that type of credit. What I do know is there's a class above them that uses them as puppets that could coordinate this stuff and is more intelligent to coordinate this stuff.
Agree, 100%.
Okay.
But so what I'm saying is that the people we're targeting with our disdain, right? Like the Newsoms, the Cuomos of the world, etc. I don't think they're colluding and coordinating. I agree with you. Right. They're being given talking points from above. They could be subliminally getting manipulated for all I know.
Right.
You know. But so I agree with your sentiment too.
Yes, that's what I think is happening. I definitely don't think Nancy Pelosi and them is smart enough to pull this stuff off. They're not the forward-thinking ones. They're worker bees. They get paid well. Yeah, they pay well too.
Yeah, but we shouldn't excuse them for their behavior, because it's not okay for them to say you can't go, you know, we're going to shut the salons down, but then she goes to a salon and gets her hair done. And it's not okay for Newsom to say you can't go inside restaurants and eat when he's going inside a restaurant and eat. The beauty and the restaurant sectors in California, you guys have to go for, like, not only for licensing but testing, all kind. You guys have to be trained to go ahead and operate these facilities. Like, you guys, and if you guys at restaurants are not clean, they get shut down and they get fined. And the same with the beauty salons. So when you have these government officials that are saying, no, you can't do this, but then they're turning around and doing the same thing, that becomes a problem. And I don't care how stupid they are, that is not okay. If you're in a political, if you're in a political power at all, or you're a public face, you need to be held accountable for your actions, and you have to be very, very careful what you do. It's not rocket science, and it's not like what goes through their mind. Like, you're not untouchable at all. Like, we might not be as medieval as we were during all of these revolutions or during the times of Roman, when they would go tear all of these, you know, kings and whatever down, but it might get to that point again because people are getting fed up. They don't have money. It's right around the holidays. People are not able to buy presents for their family. I was in the nail salon getting my nails done the last day before lockdown, and the two ladies were crying because they couldn't buy their kids gifts. So I went and I tipped them extra to make sure that they can at least get their kids a little something, and they held me and we cried because they couldn't freaking get their kids Christmas stuff. Because that was their only job.
Wendy O is a national treasure. We need more Wendy O's in this world.
I will fight for these people. It's not like I grew up very, very poor. I grew up without nothing. I had to struggle to get where I am today. It's not fair to steal people's livelihood. I don't care who you are. I don't care how intelligent you are, but it's not okay. And you have to have compassion. And these people in power, they do not have compassion. I don't know if it's because they've always had a silver spoon in their mouth, or they live in this damn ivory tower, or they've been blessed to have great 9-to-5 jobs, or to have good parents to encourage them to go to college and get a degree, or whatever the hell it is. But you still have to have compassion for people, and there's not enough compassion going on. And all these people that are arguing and mad at Chef for, you know, for at least for voicing his opinion, they don't understand. They're probably the same people that have these bullshit corporate jobs that are able to work from home on Zoom and are getting this great or decent salary, so they don't have to worry about these problems. They don't have to deal with it. They don't understand. My husband is a small business owner, and some of the hoops that he has had to jump through, obviously he's an electrical contractor. They weren't anything that the restaurant industry has had to deal with, but he's had to be very, very careful. He's had to buy his employees masks and hand sanitizer, and he's had to pay extra money to get guys tested. And those guys, when they would go get tested, he would have to pay them for the entire day because he was scared to get sued. Stuff like that. It's very hard for a lot of different people, and these people in power and these assholes online that are just not showing compassion just need to stop and just start showing others compassion and think about, God forbid, what if I was in this situation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man.
Yep, you nailed it. That's so rudimentary, and so basic, and so right, and yet instead we'll over intellectualize it.
Yeah. Like I said before, it was black people calling for a lockdown, and these people are verified on Twitter. Their money is coming regardless because they're influencers, and I'm like, are you thinking about yourself, or you're not thinking about the people hurt by this stuff, man?
I'm sure they're not donating to their own community too, making sure that people in their community are eating. I guarantee they're not.
That's another good question.
Like how much, and this is the thing, when we're talking about donating to charity, that is a very personal thing. And, it's to each individual family, it's personal. However, if you're going to sit on your pedestal and you're going to call for X, Y, and Z, put your money where your mouth is and show what you're doing, or don't talk at all. That's the problem that I have, is if you care so much about your people, what are you doing to help your people? Because I can name a whole list of things I've been doing to help my community and help people that I see struggling, but I don't need to do that because I'm not out here punishing others or verbally abusing others and sitting on my high horse. I know that I have it good right now because I'm able to work from home and make money. So, and I'm just giving it back whenever I can.
Yeah. Well, I've got all my questions answered. I think, do you got anything else, Wendy? I think Chef's done a great job tonight, answering our questions and giving me a clear idea of who he is. Because, you see people tweet and you see him, but it's different when you talk to somebody, right? When you talk to Hotep Jesus, it's a different type of interview. So I love the way you think, and you got my support, man. You got my support, and keep fighting out there, and don't back down, bro. Because you're one of the few people who won't back down. Restaurant, you're becoming very famous for this, and I think this is what people need to be famous for, right? As opposed to being famous for something stupid. No, be famous because you stood up against authoritarianism, etc. So again, not only thank you for coming on the platform, but thank you for what you're doing, man.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wendy O does not miss with the guests. Hotep.
Wendy O is like, what are you, 4 for 4 now?
Yes, sir.
100% from the field. Wendy O is MVP of the year.
I am.
Oh yeah.
Well, congratulations, by the way, and I'm excited. You got a hell of a 24 hours coming.
I know. I'm about to go get mentally prepared. Baby's coming tomorrow.
Woo! Exciting. Yeah. Oh, well, Chef, before we go, do you want to plug anything? Do you want to plug your organization for that your guys are doing to go ahead and help raise money for folks that need it? Because I when I tweeted out about you coming on, I went and donated. I want to say it was yesterday or the day before, because to me it's important to do that. But you want to plug where people can go ahead and donate if they want to?
Yeah. It's right now we've got it set up as a GoFundMe, and I'm posting it up on all my social accounts. So if you follow me at Chef Gruel on Twitter, that's probably the best place. And once again, it's we're helping struggling restaurant workers. Every dollar is transparent as to how and when, where it's going to go. We're not. We're not. This isn't for us or our business. This is about us, the community, stepping in order to bridge, hopefully, while the government figures out what they're doing.
Also, to you guys, if you want to support small businesses in your neighborhood or your community, what you can do is you can purchase gift cards directly from them, not from the third parties, but go and, order them online or whatever you need to do. And you can support your restaurants or your small businesses. But if you can, for Christmas, just shop small business, shop small. And the money actually is going to help people's families and their kids and them to actually pay their bills.
Yeah.
Shout out to Raider in the chat. Raider's been providing those links. Also, chefgruel.com. That link is in the description box below. Let's make sure y'all tune in. This interview will be available on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple in the next few days.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Chef, for coming on. God bless you and your family.
Thank you so much.
And shout out to Hotep and the God bless you and yours with the brand new edition coming. Tell your fiance congratulations, and the O family is excited for you guys.
Absolutely. I'll definitely send in a message. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Peace
good
out.
night.
It's been another sharp conversation with Hotep Jesus. I'll see y'all next time. Hotep and love.
Are we offline?